Good morning. We're going to start a new topic today. We're going to do volume. Now, before we start that, let's take a wee step back and think of one of the first things we did. We looked at measuring the length of a line. Now, that's a measurement in one dimension. Now, if we have on the board in front of us here this line, then we could take a ruler and measure that line. So let's do that. That line is 10 centimetres long. So the length of the line equals 10 centimetres. Then we moved on to area. And when we did this, I asked you, what do you understand by area? And you initially all began quoting a formula at me. Area equals length times breadth. And I said, no, I'm not looking for a formula. I'm looking for what you understand by area. And after lots of discussion, we eventually came up with it would be the surface enclosed by some boundary. And we thought, okay, that's a fair enough definition. But how would we measure the area enclosed within that boundary? That's an area that's a measurement in 2 dimensions. And we certainly couldn't lift a ruler and find the area, the surface enclosed within a boundary. And what we said was, well, we could measure it in square units. Now on the board here, I have an irregular shape, and there certainly is a surface enclosed within that boundary. And if I lay down squares on top of it now each of these squares are 1 centimetre by 1 centimetre. So each of the squares are 1 square centimetre. And we would just count the number of squares that there are to work out the area there enclosed by that boundary. So that was a very important point. The fact that if we were measuring an area, we couldn't lift a ruler. It was a surface enclosed within some boundary, and we would have to use square units to measure it. Now on the board there, or in your jotter, it would be square centimetres. If you were going to get a new carpet for your bedroom, that absolutely would not be an appropriate unit. You would go and work out how many square metres that you had. Now again, in the classroom, I take the square metre board that I have and we measure out 1 square metre, and we agree that's an appropriate unit there. So when you're asked for an area, you have to use the appropriate unit, and it would be square centimetres on the board there, square metres for a carpet for your bedroom, and the area of Glasgow, square kilometres. Now, let's move on to today's topic, which is volume. And again, I would be looking to find, what do you understand by volume? What do you think volume is? And I hope, like when we were in the classroom, we would eventually come around to a fairly good definition that was, well, we would have a 3D shape, and it would be the space inside that 3D shape. If you think maybe of a shoebox, that's certainly a 3D shape, and it's a cuboid. So if you were going to work out the volume of the cuboid, you might like to think, well, how could I measure what's inside that? And what we would do would be to take 1 centimetre cubes. A cube, 1 centimetre length, 1 centimetre breadth, and 1 centimetre height. Now what we have here is 1 cubic centimetre. That's because that's 1 centimetre by 1 centimetre by 1 centimetre. So that's 1 cubic centimetre. Now let's add a few more of those. And here we have a shape now, which again is a cuboid. And it's 4 by 2, or 2 by 4 by 1. Let's count the cubic centimetres that we have there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a cuboid, and the volume of that, there are 8 cubes, each 1 cubic centimetre. So the volume of that shape is 8 cubic centimetres. Let's add another layer to that. Again, we have a cuboid, and this time each of the layers has 8 cubic centimetres. So the volume of this cuboid would be 8 times 2, 16 cubic centimetres. So the volume of this cuboid, that's 2 by 4 by 2. 2 times 4 times 2, 16 cubic centimetres. Let's add on another layer to that. And you see here now that we again have a cuboid, 2 by 4 by 3. We've got 3 layers, each having 8 cubic centimetres, so it's 24 cubic centimetres. Let's draw the outline of this shape and remove the cubes and see what type of shape that we are left with. Can you see that it's a cuboid? 2 by 4 by 3 centimetres. We know the volume is 24 cubic centimetres, so we can establish a formula for working out the volume of a cuboid. Volume equals length times breadth times height. And we would shorten that to V equals L times B times H. Now, highlighted on the cuboid now is the length. Length equals 4 centimetres. The breadth equals 2 centimetres. And the height is equal to 3 centimetres. Now, let's move this cuboid to the side and use the formula to calculate the volume. We know the volume is 24 cubic centimetres, but let's use our formula now to calculate the volume. Now, you'll always have 3 lines of working, really important. Firstly, you will quote your formula. So your first line of working, V equals L times B times H equals, and then you'll replace the length, breadth and height by the dimensions. The length was 4, the breadth was 2 and the height was 3. So your second line will be equals 4 times 2 times 3. Now 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24, so equals 24 cubic centimetres. So the volume, the formula confirms what we know, the volume is 24 cubic centimetres. Now each time you do one, that's exactly what you will write down. 3 lines of working, firstly writing your formula down, then replacing your values, and then doing your calculation and writing, in this case, cubic centimetres. Let's do a further example. Now on the board here you can see another cuboid. This time the length is 5 metres, the breadth is 2 metres and the height is 6 metres. Now you're being asked to find the volume of this cuboid. So as we said, we'll have 3 lines of working. First line of working, V equals L times B times H, writing your formula down. Second line of working, replacing these values. So 5 times 2 times 6. 5 times 2 is 10, times 6 is 60. So the third line, 60, and this time cubic metres. Because our length, breadth and height were all in metres, our answer will be cubic metres. So let's check that over. First line of working, V equals L times B times H equals 5 times 2 times 6 equals 60 cubic metres. Okay, so when you're doing the exercise, you will have 3 lines of working exactly as we did there. Okay, thank you.